Hello everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Video Clips. We always talk about consequences, which I also now refer to as great moments in public health. You just gotta love people who do this kind of thing to people. So I'll just tell you some people I've heard from and what they have to say. I'm a 56-year-old woman and live in Maryland. I just wanted to say I found you on YouTube a couple of months ago and thank you for being a voice of reason. I feel like I'm living in the twilight zone. My daughter's almost 29 years old and is 30 weeks pregnant with her first baby. It's a little boy and she's due on September 3rd. She lost a baby at about 9 weeks last October. We've always dreamed of the day that I would be able to be with her as she delivered her first baby into the world, and she desperately wants both her husband and I to be there. However, because of this COVID nonsense, they will only allow one person in the delivery room with her, even if we agreed to have the test and we were to test negative. Worse yet, her husband is not allowed to go with her to the appointments, ultrasounds, or anything since this whole nonsense started during the 3rd month of her pregnancy. I can't believe these people are making a time that should be the happiest in their lives into a mess of dread and uncertainty. They'll never be able to get these moments back. And you just got to wonder, what kind of despot, criminal, god-awful person who hates humanity makes a rule like this? Your husband can't come with you for your pregnancy checks. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. The reason I'm emailing you is my 95-year-old mother, who lives in an independent living in a retirement community, called me today and was crying because the facility and all its residents are now again on lockdown because a few staff members tested positive for the virus. And of course, this woman has been listening to me and reading a lot of other things, and the tests are inaccurate. The tests are inaccurate. She was crying because it gets so lonely for her to be without face-to-face contact with her friends who also live there. Also last week, she was allowed a special visit with her husband, my and my sister's dad of 62 plus years, for the first time in about 3 months. My dad is 90 and has been in a nursing home with some short stints here and there in the hospital for over a year. My dad has been lonely as well, but at least he can talk to the nurses and other staff. I haven't been able to see my mother or my father for at least 3 months, and this kind of stuff, like I've heard you say, causes much depression and even despair in these elderly people who have to live like this. This is criminal behavior. This is abuse of people. Abuse. Criminal charges need to be filed against the people who have made this happen. This is a heartbreaking story. Jerry Dunham died in a hospital in Medicine Hat, Alberta at the age of 46. He leaves 2 daughters behind, age 6 and 9, and his sole friend, Crystal Lambier. He had a heart attack on May 30th. An ambulance took him to Medicine Hat Regional Hospital, where he didn't recover, remaining unresponsive until his death on June 7th. Krista and her 2 daughters flew in from Ontario, but it was too late to say goodbye. Krista describes the most terribly sad time of my life as seeing her daughter hugging her unresponsive dad in ICU, crying and begging Jerry to wake up, while her other daughter was sitting in the corner hugging her knees, rocking back and forth and crying. The doctors said he would last a few minutes to a couple hours, but his body stayed alive for another 2.5 days because Jerry's lungs and the rest of his body were still healthy. Doctors explained to Krista that the lack of oxygen to Jerry's brain from the time of heart attack to when the ambulance attendants got his heart pumping again was too long for the brain to ever function again. While every death is painful and tragic, preventable and unnecessary deaths are even worse. Jerry had been hospitalized during the previous 18 months due to heart complications, and he almost died. With Jerry's heart operating at 25% capacity and not improving, the doctors determined that he needed a pacemaker as soon as possible before eventually perhaps getting a heart transplant. On April 16th, Jerry went to see his doctor to set a date for the pacemaker surgery, but a nurse told him that his surgery was non-essential and would not be happening. Alberta's chief medical officer, Dina Hinshaw, has canceled all non-essential surgeries like Jerry's. I'd done it a few weeks earlier. Jerry posted on Facebook, "My government told me they're willing to let me die, which according to them is for my own safety." Like many other Albertans, Jerry received no medical care because of government lockdown measures. 6 weeks later, he had the heart attack and died. During those final weeks, he suffered with anxiety as he worried about his chest pains and about who would provide for his children if he died. He was too weak to work. On May 3rd, in response to the news that 35 cardiac patients had died because the Ontario government had canceled surgeries as part of lockdown, Jerry wrote on Facebook, "Hopefully I don't turn into a statistic," but of course he did. In light of Jerry's urgent need for pacemaker surgery, a family member contacted hospital officials and government officials on Jerry's behalf, and nobody replied. They've got time for press conferences every day. They've got time to issue executive orders that are 5 and 6 pages long. They have time to do all this despotic rulemaking and everything else that they're doing. No time to respond to somebody who needs help. These people are not taking care of their citizens. They're abusing their citizens. Our rulers are abusing their citizens. Jerry died just 2 weeks prior to Father's Day. Some nurses at the hospital told Krista that the death was a shame because the operating room had been empty since March, when Dr. Hinshaw canceled 22,000 non-essential surgeries. One of the same nurses also asked Krista whether they should put this down as a COVID death since it's related, since the surgery got delayed. Krista responded, absolutely not, since Jerry had tested negative for COVID on admittance. In Krista's words, this is a prime example as to why these numbers are so inflated. He was killed by the lockdown, not by COVID-19, but they would have been only too happy to put it on the death certificate. I get emails like this every hour. The number of people who are being abused and harmed is in the millions. So makeamericansfreeagain.com. Go there, register. We have to get rid of these people. We have to take our country and our lives back, our countries and our lives back. This is going on all over the world. All right, here's another one. I found out through a CT last July I was suspected cirrhosis of the liver. I couldn't afford to spend money for tests and doctor fees, but I finally saved enough money by January of 2020. Called immediately, made an appointment. The soonest I could get in was March. Well, as you know, COVID hit. Governor, also known as Emperor Pritzker, closed off elective anything and began playing the COVID game. I had 2 phone conversations with my doctors. I kept telling them that my feet were swelling. I also noticed around Mother's Day my stomach was getting larger. I couldn't fit in my clothes or shoes. Finally, I called my MD and told him what was going on. Had an appointment in July, but I knew I couldn't wait that long. My MD told me to take 3 Lasix pills and made an emergency appointment for the next day. He took a look at me and sent me to the ER. This is what happened to me at that point. I had to be admitted so they could drain the excess fluid out of my body. They did an EKG and several other tests and ruled out the heart as the cause. They did blood work and it came back low potassium. Asked me all the dumb questions, told me I had to have a COVID test. If I refused the test, I'd be put in isolation as if I had COVID. I began to see where this was leading. I took the test reluctantly and against my rights, was negative. I spent the night getting a potassium IV. The next morning, the floor resident came and was talking to me a little bit as to what was going on. Then he said it was written in my chart I had shortness of breath when I was in the ER. The moment he said that, I looked at him like he was nuts and said, I don't know where you got that or what the hell you're talking about. He looked strange at me and he said he'd remove that from my chart. Immediately, he did just that. How convenient, because I'm at that perfect age of 67, perfect age for COVID. When admitted, I told them I was only there for 24 hours, then I would walk. Whatever tests were going to be done, they better do immediately. When they saw I wasn't about to play the game, I was mysteriously released. Unfortunately, for me, due to Governor Hitler's rule of nothing in the hospital except COVID patients, everything I had lined up was put on hold. She now has cirrhosis of the liver, no cure except a transplant, which I'm told due to my age I can't get. 6 months to 2 years to live. Makes me wonder how many other people have the same death call due to the governor. To me, it's the same as murder, and he should pay for that, to which I say amen. And I don't know who does this what kind of people do this? And what kind of people think that it's okay for people to do this? All right, so we've all had the experience of people making horrible comments on Facebook and social media. If you're against the brainwashing narrative that makes no sense at all. I mean, how do you justify this stuff that I'm reporting to you every week? And it's a tiny percentage. For every story I report to you, there are thousands. Okay, so I'm going to have another book coming out at the same time as my COVID operation book. And it's going to be the stories of COVID, because I think these stories need to be told, and a collection of them big enough needs to be put together so people can actually see the enormity of what these terrible, despotic criminals have done to humanity. So all this shaming that goes on because you don't believe this nonsense, and this is a response to this. So this woman writes, Laura, my mom just died without being able to hug or hold her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She stopped eating. She lost interest in a life where the only people she could see were those who took care of her physical needs. I didn't get to see my mom and hug her and hold her. This is the world that the medical mafia has created. Fear has won over love. My mom didn't care about the virus. She wanted to see us, but the CDC decides, and now she's gone. So please don't accuse me of being selfish. I hope you never have to go through with that, with your mom, dying alone, all alone without her loved ones. I hope this world gets back to normal. And I won't vote for Biden because he promises to make masks mandatory. The next step is mandatory vaccinations. No way. So call me what you want to shame me, but I know what counts, and that is what we love and our freedom. These rulers have taken away those we love and our freedom. And so for those of you who shame people who have taken the time to understand what's going on here, shame on you. Shame on you. You know, when Hitler was in charge of Germany, and this is historically documented, this isn't hearsay, there was a very small percentage of the population that in Germany that actually was part of the Third Reich, as in soldiers and, you know, government workers and all that sort of thing. But one of the reasons why the Germans got away with what they did was the number of German citizens who remained silent and just refused to admit that anything might be wrong, or to intervene, or to stick up for people. And there's one very touching story that's told by a German woman and man who belonged to a church. And they said that they used to hear the trains going by the church on Sunday with the Jews screaming in the cars, and they would sing louder so that they didn't have to hear it. And so we have a lot of people out there right now singing louder. These are the people who think that everybody should wear a mask, and they believe everything that they've been told, and they support these despotic rulers. Sing louder, my friends. Just sing louder and tell me if you think that this is all right. I want to see somebody who actually says, you know what? This is all worth it. These people who are dying, who are losing their lives and being separated from their families and having babies by themselves without their mothers, and all of that is just, it's all so justified. You're singing louder, you people out there. They're probably not watching this channel. I think that they're probably pretty busy hiding in the basement with their masks and that sort of thing right now, writing letters to the editor on their moral high horse. I love that. We have one of those in the newspaper here in Columbus. Every single day, somebody writes a letter to the editor and says, it's selfish to not wear a mask. You put everybody in danger. These people, millions of people are in danger. You mask-wearing little morons, sing louder. That's what you're doing. I always say to myself, I'm going to be calmer instead of more fired up when I do these videos. But it's hard not to be. It's hard when you hear these stories. Your day will come, you little masked wonders who are hiding in the basement writing letters to the editor. Your day will come, because you're no different than the despots who made this happen. MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com. MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com. Go sign up. Help our cause. We have to overpower this system of despotic rule and take our lives and our country and our liberties back. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back to you next week with more news, and we're going to keep working on this until we solve this problem. Thank you for watching.